do a wrap-up video on the back end of the Econoline, just to show some of the work that was done after the last video's conclusion, in which we installed the lower rear corners on the passenger and driver side, which left a considerable amount of work left to be done before we can move on to the bed sides. But in the interest of time and my sanity, I just knocked it all out, and I figured I would kind of come back after the fact and do a little bit of catch up. And that is a functional tailgate on a 64 Econoline. After the lower rear corners were installed, I made up some small brackets, which you can kind of see here, plug welded to the 2x4 lower cross member and bent to conform to the existing line on the corner panel, and then plug welded to the corner panel itself. And that does two things. It fills a huge gap between this corner panel and the structure itself, and it also gives a point to mount the hinge assembly for the tailgate. So in order to do that without the tailgate hardware just ripping through the sheet metal of the lower corner, I welded some nuts to a fairly thick piece of steel for a backing plate. To give the hinge somewhat of a solid point to mount to. Same thing on the driver's side. Again, the bracket plug welded to the 2x4 lower cross member, tying that into the lower rear corner and giving it a point to mount the hinge. After that was done, tackled the sail panel, if that is what you call it, but that's what I'm going to call it for now. The sail panel, which is something that I was dreading. Just wasn't sure exactly how I was going to do it, but it turned out all right. Try to utilize the factory spot weld locations to the best of my limited abilities, filling in the holes I drilled to remove the factory piece and giving me a point to plug weld to on the new piece. And then on the back side you can see there's just a series of spot welds or lap welds. I'll have those ground down and seam sealed on the inner portion here. Just keep moisture from building up between the two. And again, same thing on the driver's side. After the sail panels were put in, I mounted the hinge tailgate supports. Factory location on the tailgate, and a hole drilled through the sail panel to position the support. And now that I'm saying all this out loud, I realized I do need to weld in a washer through that point so that the tailgate support doesn't shear away at that sheet steel that makes up the sail panel. So go ahead and add that to the list. Also made, I'm not sure what these things would be called, but whatever they're called, I made those. Welded them to the uprights. Those pieces extend through the opening in the tailgate, which then allows you to secure the tailgate shut. With this, and no expense was spared in the research, development, and application of this component for this truck. Ford went swinging for the ropes on that one. So I will replace this at some point with a newer chain with maybe a rubberized coating on the links. At some point. But yeah. There it is, functioning tailgate, 64 Econoline. And I guess at this point in the video, it's time for the old Truth airplane to come in for a landing. And let's talk about gaps, because they are not good. But these are the kind of things that you run into when you do this kind of work on a truck that was returning to the earth at the rate that this one was returning to the earth at. I did my best to square up the bed before building the frame structure. But when you build a structure like this, and you build it square, and then you install it in the vehicle that isn't square, you end up with some conflicting lines. So we're a little tight up top. It opens up at the bottom on the passenger side, and the opposite is true on the driver. A little wide at the top, narrows up towards the bottom. I'm not sure what the gap on these things is like from the factory. I'm sure it's not perfect. But perfection is a fool's pursuit. Functioning tailgate, 64 Econoline. So in the next video, we're going to be getting down with the bedside panel replacement. And I might dabble a little bit in the front wheel well. As you call that, a dog leg. I might do some repair work on that piece there. I might not. Might save that for a rainy day down the road. But once this mess is handled, I feel confident in saying that the bed structure as a whole will be sound enough to cut the bed floor out. Cut the bed floor, the rear rails, remove the axle, the springs, and turn this into just a void. And then once we have that void, gonna slip this bad boy in there. Fabricate the frame rails in which to mount it. And then once that's complete, start working on the front end of the vehicle. Not sure which direction we're going to go on that. Kind of want to make this thing a wheel standing gasser tribute. Some real wild shit that you'd see at the drag strips 50 years ago. In which case I'd keep the solid front axle in gasser tradition. But I've also seen some cats doing some pretty cool Mustang 2 setups up front. So, all kinds of stuff going on. Thanks for watching.